Hi, welcome to Apex Legends, my next video. My name's Dratlaw44, and today I wanted to cover some things, lots of other stuff, some more things, and some other stuff. And hopefully by the end of it you'll be highly entertained by all the stuff and things that I will be going through. Nice, excellent. Jokes aside, of course, I'm actually really going to be going through how to improve your gameplay, how to sort of like just improve things like your aim, your movement, and just generally get better at the game. I mean, I am still actually in the process of learning. I'm not a perfect Apex player by any means, and it's a kind of a thing where I want to try and just share some things that I've learned along the way that actually might help you guys, especially if you're on console. If you're on PS4 or on Xbox, I think this is where it really comes into its own. PC, well, I mean, there's always things to learn from, even on PC when you're using mouse and keyboard, but probably less so, because recoil isn't a thing, which is handy, I guess. Right, without much to do, let's get into the first part of the video, which, of course, is regarding the settings. Okay, so, of course, on settings, one of the things that you can look to do is improve or to increase, shall we say, certain parts of it. Now, one of the things, I mean, when you look down, there's a lot of menus that perhaps you may well leave the same. You might change depending on your playstyle, and a lot of it is dependent on your playstyle. One of the things I personally did was change my controller preset to Rocket Puncher, basically so slide and crouch is the analog stick for me on PS4. I guess it would be different on whatever controller type you're using, or mouse and keyboard, and then slide is circle instead, which again may be different on the other part. It's just easier for my particular playstyle, which is really, really good, but you can kind of fiddle around with that. Now, regarding look sensitivity, of course, again, I would have it, where you're comfortable with. Personally, myself, I have it on high, number 4, and I have then the ADS sensitivity on 5. This is more like a recent change, actually. Something that I'm finding really, really good. And with field of view, a friend of mine told me to increase it up to 80, so it just means that you can see just a little bit more. But again, these are all things that aren't set in stone. You don't have to follow exactly what I was doing. You can just kind of play around with it, and of course just see what you're most comfortable with, and then kind of like over a period of time it gets a lot easier, and it will help with your aim and your movement. It definitely is something that's good. Now, the next part then is, of course, what I tend to do is to go into the firing range. Now, something I like to do just before a match, if I'm on my own, I like to just jump in for a few minutes and just pretty much just, practice a bit of movement, a bit of aim. I tend to sort of grab the gold shields and stuff. Don't really need it, to be honest, when you're on your own, but I do it anyway. And I'll grab the guns that I tend to use the most, which in my case tends to be the Hemlock and the R99. I tend to find that they're the nicest ones. Regarding stock, I put purple. Mag, I'll put purple, but I know that that's not always realistic. And I'll put a level 2 barrel stabilizer and a sort of reasonable scope on as well. Again, these are not always things you're going to find necessarily in the game, but that is the whole point, isn't it? It's just trying to sort of just improve your aim and sort of say, well, these are things that you're most likely going to find. So as you can see with a burst fire, I just sort of shoot a non-moving target. You have to bear in mind that, of course, real targets are going to lightly move, but that's the whole point, isn't it? This is just practicing your aim from where they actually are, and of course practicing hip fire as well. So this is just something that I tend to do, just sliding around, just pretty much just trying to shoot. And you're going to miss some shots. You know that, especially when you've just jumped into the game, but it is a good way of sort of like practicing different situations, like ducking cover just behind this wall here, as you can see. Now, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to strafe, take some shots, reload. This is imagining someone's actually shooting at me and then finishing them off like that. And, this is a kind of a way of, just getting very familiar with all the guns. Now, I would recommend highly to use lots of different guns. I wouldn't always use the ones that you're most comfortable with, because you're going to be most comfortable with them. So if you're using only the guns you're most comfortable with, you're going to pick up a gun you're not so great with, and you're going to really suck. And that is a big thing. It is hard to do that, but you got to think, well, at the beginning of a match, you may well actually sort of do those kind of things. Now, I always try and sort of practice, jumping off a ledge, sliding and things like that. Didn't go very well, that particular one, so I will try it again usually, and sort of thing. And this one I sort of tried the R99. Right, okay, let's just see how that worked. Again, I missed a few shots. So you can sort of see that that is something that I need to work on in regards to practice. And this is the whole point. Is that you're kind of just improving your aim. You're getting used to maybe different scenarios. You're not going to cover every scenario that is in actually a game, because, you know, when you've got real life opponents and real life enemies, they're not all going to do exactly what you want them to do. In fact, they're probably going to do exactly the things that you don't want them to do, because that's the way it goes. Now, one thing I like to practice is definitely hipfire, because I used to be much more a regular Destiny 2 player, and ADSing was something that was very, very, very common. And unfortunately, it gives you a bit of a bad habit in that you're always aiming down sights, and what it really does is reduce your stray speed massively. And one of the things I sort of like to do with the firing range is go in and sort of practice firing from the hip. Even if it's the most awful shots, which you can sort of see there, they're not great, but it's just a kind of a process where you're learning, you know, how to be a better player, and it can only improve you, you know. And this is the whole point: is that you're just literally, as you can see in the background, I'm just going around, I'm just shooting with different guns, sort of like trying to kind of like as if I'm going to get position, trying to jump at them, shoot them down, and sort of things like that. And although these aren't always exactly the scenarios, like I said, this is just a great way of kind of getting used to swapping weapons to finish off that kill, getting off the aim, the burst fire, and like I say, I mean, you know, using different weapons that you're not so comfortable with. Like one of my weapons that I'm not so great with, or two actually, is the Flatline and the R301. Now, they are good weapons, it's just that the recoil pattern on them is rather garbage. Yes, the Carbine or R301 can have a stabilizer on it, which is actually okay, but as you can imagine there, you don't always get the perfect things. And you know, these are weapons that I can improve on personally to get better with, because I'm not always going to have the Hemlock and the R99 or a gun that I feel comfortable with. There are others, but there's definitely a mixture. Like one of my worst guns is the Wingman. It's a really great gun, but I'm just not good with it. I never was a hand cannon person in Destiny 2, and I think that kind of comes into it as regards to you know, other games, because there's weapons that are similar. Now, as you can see in the background, I sort of attempted to do a running slide. I failed it twice actually, so then I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to definitely do it, and I then practice it to get the aim and the shots. And again, you know, that is something that I see used on me quite a lot actually, where someone will slide in with an R99 down a hill and they will absolutely rinse me, and they probably practice that quite a lot of times, you know. And this is a kind of a process on there just to try and improve your aim, try and improve your movement, get used to the settings that you've changed, because that is going to take time. With any change of settings, you're not going to be like instantly used to it. Well, maybe you are, you know. Some people probably, they just change their settings and instantly are used to it, but most of us tend not to be. So this is something that, you know, it's just a great way of just practicing and just running around, just doing it. I wouldn't recommend doing it for hours and hours unless you really want to, but you know, if you do it in sort of like 10-15 minute bursts, 5-minute bursts even, if you've got a little bit of time, is always good. And just practice your strafing, practice your movement, practice where you would go, practice what you would do, and just sort of like just get used to those sort of things. Now, the next part then that I would normally do is going into a firing range with a friend. Now, with this one, it is a little different. So what we tend to do is we put on friendly fire, we then go on to different teams, and then we have a sort of like a usage of whatever weapons we're not comfortable with. We tend to use the same weapons, so we are both, in this case, using Flatlines. We both know that that is one of our weaker guns. And what we'll do is we'll have a bit of a one-on-one and do a few games of that, as you can see in the background. Now, as you can see in the background, it was very close. My friend JHD won out on that one, but, you know, that was not really surprising. Now, what we tend to do then is that we'll swap characters, literally then swap back, and you instantly get your gold shield. And of course, what we do is that we, you can press options, whatever that is, on the controller part, and you can then actually put on back onto your team to revive them. So we just try and do that as quick as we possibly can, just to save healing up and mucking about. As you can see there, you know, we're using the cover, we're trying to slide round. Unfortunately, yet again, another really close situation. Didn't win it. I won't mind saying, actually, JHD, his aim and his way of playing is way superior to mine at the moment. and he absolutely destroyed me on this particular session. But that's the way you do it. You know, you learn and you can only improve, and this is a really, really great way of just trying to get better as a player. If you're having a one-on-one battle, sometimes unfortunately you won't always get a one-on-one situation, but that's what you've got to be mindful as well. One of the big things is learning just to kind of move around, change, switch it about, fire some shots, never stay in the one place, and really just try your very hardest just to be a hard target to hit. And be aware of your surroundings. If you realise that there are multiple opponents around, do not stay in the same position and try and get the high ground as much as possible. So it's a really, really good way of just, learning how to strafe, to slide, to change position. It becomes much more automatic. Now, although you will, realise that practicing and shooting a friend is much different to a real-life game, you can use the kind of things that you learn just to sort of, predict. I mean, and look at this clip here. JHD knows exactly where I am, so I peek out. I'm like, right, okay, I'll just peek out on the other side. He knows exactly where I am as well. And I'm like, now I went on the lower ground. He's on the higher ground. He's straight away got a massive advantage. Positionally, he's in a better place than I ever could be. And I know this. Now I try running over, and I'm sort of like, right, okay. But eventually, I can't do anything, and I get knocked down. It's going to happen. And this is the whole point, is that you learn things. Now, as you can see, then we switched weapons. We went to an R301. There was a much longer part where we actually used the R301, but I've only done a couple, I think, with this. But the recoil and the patterns, this is a weapon that I'm weaker with. He's actually better with it, so I guess he had a bit of an advantage, but okay, that's one of those things. It worked out both ways because I switched to the Hemlock at some point anyway. So as you can see there, I'm just sliding around. I'm trying to gain cover, just trying to kind of gain the height position. And again, so close, so frustrating. But and this is the whole point. And then we go back to the flatline. And what we do is we switch in between, so we'll have one game with the flatline, one game with the R301, or we'll do several games with the R301 and several games with the flatline. It's very much preference, but you can use the surroundings to your advantage. You can slide around, you can jump about, you can try and gain the better position. Now, as you can see here, what I actually did, a big mistake for me there, was I stayed on that top part too long. And look at this, he jumps off and kills me. So, knocks me down. So, it's like with anything there, it's a really, really great way of just getting used to the overall play style, the sensitivity settings, if you've changed anything, how to kind of maybe improve your aim, because they are moving targets. They're better than the dummies. Even though it's a one-on-one situation, which you ideally want for any fight in Apex, that's always what you want, is a one-on-one situation. If you've got a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1, some players, they might win that, and that's fine. But a lot of us, realistically, we're going to struggle. And I mean, if they're very beginner players, yeah, okay, that's a lot easier. But if they're really good players or half-decent players, you really shouldn't have any chance of winning that battle. Now, as you can see, I mean, we sort of switched to the Hemlock for the last part, just to kind of show up that, obviously, he said that his weakest point was the Hemlock. It's my strongest gun, so we kind of switched it from the R301 situation, being one of my weakest and one of his strongest. And you can sort of see a bit of a difference, but it was a good battle and a really good thing. Now, you don't always get a length of time to just battle each other without being interrupted, and I would always say to recommend being very aware and listening out for, if you hear fire, if you hear other situations, I would get a better position, climb up high, get out of there, heal up behind some good cover out of the way. Kills are important, everything is good, but staying alive is vital otherwise, because if you're dead or you're knocked down, you can't kill anyone. And that is a big thing in regards to Apex. There's lots to learn with this game. As I said, I'm no expert yet. JHD is a way better player than I am. And that's the whole point, is that playing with better players as well can improve you. And you can learn things off them by the way they move, the settings they use, the play style, and you can become a better player from it. So that is pretty much it from me as regards to the video. Hopefully you found it helpful. useful, interesting, and entertaining as much as it could be. If you want to drop a like or comment below, please do. That would be brilliant. And if you want to subscribe for future content, I will be most certainly uploading more videos of various different things. And if there is any suggestions for other videos that I could do that you would like to see, I've already had a couple regarding a competitive ranking. Then of course, these things that I would always take on board and look to do. But otherwise, without much to do, that is it from me today. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch. Have a great rest of the day, and you take care. Cheers now. See ya. Bye.